For the reflective practitioner, building theory from practice and building theory for practice requires a certain degree of knowledge management. There are three basic means of knowledge acquisition. Firstly, we need to discover the knowledge, and from this we need to then study the components of that knowledge to develop understanding. And then of course the final stage is to communicate that knowledge, and that is not only about the individual sharing knowledge with others, but others sharing knowledge with the individual. And there is a certain significance then in terms of knowledge management. It requires skills in terms of tracking and measuring information as it is acquired, and sharing and making use of that information. And this information can actually be very, very tacit rather than explicit, or in other words, intangible within the context of study. And another significant aspect of knowledge management is the need to capture and share understanding and knowledge, to use productive knowledge to enhance our own learning and improve the quality of what we're doing as teachers. And therefore knowledge involves a certain degree of validity from the information that we gather. And there are certain basics that we can consider then in terms of knowledge. Knowledge is information. Knowledge for the reflective practitioner is also comprised of things like values, beliefs and assumptions around teaching, around learning. And it's also based on experiences that that we go through in the classroom. And of course, another basic of knowledge is the rules and regulations that we work to as practitioners. And we have to consider certain categories of knowledge. We have seen that for the reflective practitioner, knowledge starts off as being quite tacit. This therefore means that knowledge is very personal, based on experiences that we're having in the classroom, and therefore personal wisdom which is built up over time. In this sense, it's very context specific and therefore is very difficult to make explicit, and perhaps difficult to make it meaningful for society as whole, because it is so individual. And because it is tacit, it makes it difficult to actually quantify or to codify the components of that knowledge. Categories of knowledge also assume that it can be transmitted through various social interactions. And socialization, as we have seen, is part of the process of knowledge building. Socialization, interaction, where knowledge is shared with others and comes from others to the individual, is where the teacher's knowledge management starts to take hold. Explicit knowledge is what ends up being recorded. Tacit knowledge can be translated into explicit knowledge by being written down, by being recorded in some way, and shared with others through different means. Another category of knowledge is cultural knowledge. There are certain cultural beliefs around teaching, around learning, around what makes knowledge. And these can be specific not only to a group of teachers in a school, but specific to a school compared to other schools, and can even be specific regionally, nationally, and even globally. And what this means is that we can build a framework of this whole process of knowledge acquisition and development, where the identification of our knowledge needs leads us to looking for information, exploring, and to discover existing knowledge as other people hold it. And from this, the reflective practitioner is engaged in a dual process of not only acquiring knowledge, but also creating new knowledge. And from this acquisition and creation, there is the process of making tacit knowledge more explicit. And this is about storing knowledge and organizing knowledge into coherent and meaningful categories, and then sharing that knowledge with others. From this, knowledge is applied, it's put into practice, and it's this whole process that underpins knowledge acquisition and development for the reflective practitioner. So we can see that the process of knowledge management fits with the notion of reflective practice very well, and it's a process of taking existing knowledge, identifying new knowledge, creating new knowledge, and then making that knowledge more explicit, and then sharing that knowledge with others. And this becomes a process of knowledge management, not only for the individual, but for the whole community of teachers.